Hello and welcome to another That's Just Wild Q&A, where we take on your burning questions about nature and wildlife. I'm Steve Backshall, and as always, I'm joined by...
Me, Lizzie Daly.
And me, Sarah Roberts.
Right, to kick things off, it's a question for you, Steve. This is from Josh Morris Blake via Insta. Hello, I've been living out in China for around 6 months and have been using every weekend and day off for hiking, camping and looking for wildlife. And China has a whole lot. Whilst camping on the Great Wall of China, probably illegal but well worth it.
We didn't hear anything.
All sorts of... Cut that bit out. I saw all sorts of squirrels, spiders and small lizards in the nooks and crannies. Which other human-built environments that you've worked in have provided the best homes for wildlife? Thanks so much.
First off, Josh Morris Blake, you and I should be pals. You sound like my kind of person. And
was it the illegal
camping on the Great Wall of China? Kind of, yeah, absolutely sold it. But also going looking for lizards and spiders in the Great Wall of China. I mean, actually, I'm kind of thinking that I might plagiarise that and turn it into a whole series. If I do, then you get a cut, Josh. I mean, gosh, what a fantastic story. And it is something that is quite dear to my heart. And over the last 2 seasons of Deadly 60, we have made a massive effort to do just that, to do a lot of filming in cities and urban environments, because it's something that we tend to forget. It is my kind of natural impulse to head to the wildest, most out there place that I can get to go to the frontiers of the natural world as far away from people as possible. And that's great and it's amazing, but it's not very familiar to your average person. And I think it's really powerful to know that we do have stuff living under our noses. So everywhere we've been, we have done all we can to try and film wildlife living right alongside people. One of the best things that we did was just outside of Newcastle in Australia, where we were filming the brand new Newcastle funnel web spider, which is bigger than the Sydney funnel web spider, probably the most venomous spider in the world, even bigger still. We filmed with an individual they called Hemsworth because he was so hench, which is pretty awesome, found in an urban backyard in Newcastle. And then we went out herping on bicycles. So
what?
I had this idea. Do you know what herping is?
Going out and finding lizards and
Yeah, absolutely. And quite often we'll do it driving the roads just after dark as the road's still quite warm and the tarmac is holding some of the heat from the day. And so you get lizards and snakes coming out onto the road and lying there, picking up some of that warmth before they go off and hunt. And you sometimes do it like driving slowly in a car. And I thought, why don't we just do it on mountain bikes? So myself and Heather, a rather wonderful local herpetologist, we got on our mountain bikes and we went out with our lights and we cycled down these roads and found death adders, which are one of the most venomous snakes in the world, the fastest striking snake in the world.
Were you wearing shorts?
Oh, yes. The legs were fully out caught death adders on the road off a mountain bike. One of the greatest wildlife experiences I have had. And it's just like, cycling down someone's local side street. It was genius. And I think that all of these encounters, because they are familiar, because they're in our world, they are so much more likely to encourage particularly young people to go out and start looking for themselves. Because it's not saying to them, the only place you're going to find wildlife is somewhere that you frankly can't go. If you can say there is stuff in your backyard that is awesome, I think that's really empowering, it's really inspiring, and it works for anyone. It works for someone who's in this country who, they might not have a garden, but they'll have a local park and they can think, yeah, there could be cool stuff that I could find right here. And I love that. Oh, another thing that we did as well, oh my gosh, this absolutely rocked, was I have some friends in Bali who work for the Bali Reptile Rescue. And we went out for a couple of days in Bali catching snakes that had just rocked up in people's houses, sometimes in their cars and in their motorbikes. And those included 4.5 meter long king cobras that you just found in someone's back garden that were, kind of crawling up through the plumbing. It was brilliant. It was absolutely fantastic. And the fact that it is there in someone's house in a familiar location is, to me, all the more powerful.
Except for the people that wake up in the bed and find
With a
this
king cobra
huge
staring
king
at them. Now for you, Sarah. The next question is from Ari Hayton in Lancashire, and they ask, can a big group of mosquitoes kill a cow?
Well, you know I love mosquitoes on this show, and it is a question that has occurred to me, but maybe more, can mosquitoes, enough of them, kill me? Because they really like my blood. So I thought I'd dive into this one. Now, I'm going to get super technical. Cows could have roughly around 42 litres of blood, because it's 7% of the body weight. So let's just say we're using that size cow. It's got 42 litres of blood. A mosquito, generally, it drinks 2 to 5 microliters of blood at a time. So there are 1 million microliters in a litre of blood. So that's quite a lot. So let's just say an average mosquito drinks 3 microliters of blood. This is like maths, isn't it? Is this like sitting down with your kids, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to do those figures in my head, and I came up with, and that is a lot of blood.
So all right, 10% of blood loss could be life-threatening. So if we had enough mosquitoes to drink 10% of the cow's blood, so that's like 4 litres worth of the blood, you're going to need 1,400,000 mosquitoes to remove that amount of blood. So has anyone ever seen a plume of mosquitoes that big? Because I've heard the Amazon is pretty brutal. Is it likely? It is the equivalent of like having a shoebox packed full of mosquitoes, like packed to the brim and then releasing it. So it's quite a lot. Oh, it's like my worst nightmares.
Well, this wasn't with a cow. This was actually with a wonderful second camera op, Elizabeth Streeter, on a shoot in the Pantanal.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the only times where I've watched somebody get bitten so many times that I was genuinely worried about her health. So it was the wet season, so there was lots of still water and the mosquitoes were everywhere. And she was filming, so obviously not reacting, and she had these really thin trousers on. And she got close to going into a full kind of severe allergic reaction, going into anaphylaxis, because every time I turned around, she'd get more and more pale, she was essentially going into a state of shock as so many mosquito bites were kind of adding on as she was filming. She was almost sick. She felt dizzy. She was like almost passing out on the shoot because of the amount of bites she was getting. So yeah, I've seen not quite death to a cow, but I've seen something similar and it's horrendous.
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out, because actually to drink enough blood to kill a cow is highly, highly unlikely. But the association of being bitten, so heavily being bitten like that, it can cause an animal to stop feeding, lose condition, collapse from exhaustion, besides the fact it probably wants to chew all its limbs off at the same time. It's making it more vulnerable to predators because it's too busy trying to scratch itself. And then, of course, you've got exposure, like you said, because there's more to it. And then Steve's favourite thing on the planet, mosquitoes can carry parasites. So in that respect, you might not need very many mosquitoes at all to kill a cow, because if they're carrying something like lumpy skin disease or Rift Valley fever, which both sound beautiful, in which case they could kill a cow if it's infected with that. So, you know, anywhere from 1 to 1,400,000 mosquitoes biting at once simultaneously to take down a cow, or maybe a few less if you're having a really bad allergic reaction, like you say, Lizzie.
Great answer.
For ad-free listening, our newsletters, special deep dive episodes, and members-only benefits, you can subscribe to us at that'sjustwild.com.
Steve, you must have been mauled by some mosquitoes.
Yeah, I have been. I would say that I'm not the most attractive to mosquitoes. I can be in situations with other people, everything is identical, they're getting nailed, I'm not. So I kind of think it's one of the only reasons I can still carry on doing the job I do today, because, you know, I get peppered with bites all over my face and it doesn't swell up like a watermelon. But yeah, I mean, there are times when it's absolutely horrific. But like Sarah says, you know, it's the one mosquito that carries a disease that's going to kill you. Actually dying from blood loss for a big adult human or for a cow, that is a big ask. I can't see that happening.
Next question for you, Lizzie. And this one comes from Megan Parnell via Insta. If you could relive one animal encounter again, what would it be and why?
I have a habit of not answering questions in the questions, and I'm going to do it again. And I'm really sorry, Megan, because it's such a wonderful question.
You should be a politician.
But I want to go back to the wild island of Vancouver in British Columbia, because that was where I wanted to find seawolves, coastal seawolves, and didn't see one. In my whole time there, it was a 10-day expedition. Myself and one other gentleman called Tom McPherson, we were dropped off by seaplane in the middle of nowhere in the middle of winter. And the aim was to try and film seawolves. And we, at every turn, were one step behind them. We saw fresh prints. We saw sea otters turned inside out, fresh from like hours before. We saw tiny pup footprints in the sand.
You've been given the opportunity to relive one animal encounter again, and you've chosen one where you didn't encounter the animal.
Okay, so just to defend my argument here, I could talk about blue whales, I could talk about jaguars in Costa Rica. There are so many wonderful encounters that I've had, absolute joy of experiencing. But we all have that one almost encounter or nemesis species that escapes us. And in going down this wormhole of reliving all these wonderful things, I think that is such a special environment. And, part of the thing that I get an absolute kick out of is when you try and find an animal, like the challenge of going out to try and find it. And when it does pay off, it's one of the most rewarding things, whether you lean on your skills as a naturalist or it's, just a far-flung remote area. And it's a case of trying to position yourself, in the right territory or near a den or whatever it may be of a species. And I think there's a lot to be said in those skills. And I get a lot from, leaning into those skills. On this one occasion, they didn't quite work. And I think that stands out to me as a place that I want to go back.
Unfinished business.
Now, for our last question today, we have a friend helping us out with the answer. The question is from James Cull via Insta, and it is: if trees communicate through underground fungal networks, do forests have shared memory?
That's so deep.
Isn't it? It's a question that is so full of wonder and mystery.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, yeah, absolutely. I was at the Lost Gardens of Heligan in Cornwall yesterday. Incredible abundance of different kinds of fungus there. And working with an amateur mycologist called Dan Ryan. And I passed this question on to him because, to be frank, it was a little bit beyond me. And his response was so lovely. And this is what Dan had to say.
Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone. Thanks for this terribly interesting question about whether forests have memory. I think the short answer is probably we just don't know, at least not in terms of a human memory. But in many other uses of the word memory, I think surely the answer is yes. We know from lots of really great science that trees are connected to each other, not only through the soil and the air and the water, but in communion with a great underground network of fungi. Sometimes it's even thought that these fungi are helping the trees communicate with each other in a thing called the Wood Wide Web, a play on the internet, of course. Perhaps we've got it slightly wrong, though. Perhaps it's the fungi that are communicating with each other, and the trees are just the telegraph poles in that great internet connection underground. But whichever way we think about it, what it reveals is that the forest is not just a bunch of individual things, it's a giant super-organism, all working together effectively as one living thing. And I think this tells us a story that informs the question. Of course, this old living thing that may be many thousands of years old has got a kind of memory. Imagine everything that's happened to you over the years of your life, the great ups and all the great downs possibly as well, the stresses, the traumas, the threats. And then imagine you're a forest and you've lived through fire, drought, floods, being eaten, pests, disease, and all the rest of it. These stresses help shape you to be the way that you are, just like all the challenges that you've gone through in your life shape you. We also know from the field of epigenetics that our traumas and our memories can be inherited through generations. And this has been an extraordinary revelation of the last 50 years or so. It also seems to be true in the organisms that live in the forest. So trees and fungi and plants and animals can also inherit all of these different things down through generations. So of course, overall, that forest has a kind of ecological memory. Everything is built in with an ecological memory that is powering our behaviours and transforming the future of nature.
So, I mean, if the question itself wasn't enough to completely blow your mind, I think Dan's answer makes me question everything I think I know about the natural world and puts everything into this extraordinary focus of potential and possibility. It makes me want to go out and start talking to the vegetables. It just gives me this sense of Gaia, of this incredible world where everything is interconnected and where we are not even on the cusp of understanding quite how much. And I love it, and I'm enthralled by it, and I just want to learn more. What do you guys think?
I think there's a bloody good chance that we've always been looking at things from the wrong perspective, but we're such an arrogant little species that we keep going because we like to know best. But I love that whole answer where it just flips everything on its head and makes us think a bit outside of the box.
I guess there's a sense that, yes, forests could have collective memory, and that, for example, were you to enter a period of drought, that all of the organisms within that forest would react in a set way that is the same across all of the different species or across all of the different trees, for example. And how else would that trigger happen? And I think it's very exciting.
I think it really highlights how complex that communication system is for mycelium, is for fungus. And to Sarah's point, is kind of, yeah, of course they use important chemical signals and electrical impulses. And it's connected. It's a connected web that we're only really now just starting to understand. I recently went to an event and there was this woman there who was transferring the electrical impulses of different plants and playing it out as sound. It's like how plants sound and how it varies from, day to day and night. And I find it's a whole world also I know very little about, but it is really, really fascinating. And maybe we could do a whole fungus app.
How did it make you feel as a vegetarian?
That while you're about to tuck into an asparagus, it's actually going, no, Lizzie, no! I trusted you!
Basil screaming at me.
We should do a special episode on that at some point, because now I have even more questions after that. Like, what happens when we deforest an area? How far does that network stretch? How long is the memory there for, if that was the case, If you take the trees out, does the fungus still remember? Like, and how long does the fungus live without the trees? It's like, you blow my mind, Steve. Thanks.
Yeah.
He is all I can say, fun guy, after all.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
We went through the whole segment without saying that, Lizzie. I mean, all I have to say really is that it was very nice to have somebody else do my job for me. Thank you very much, Dan. Like that. In fact, there'll probably be more of that in future. Just about all your questions answered by someone who knows better than I do.
You and us both, Steve. Right, that's all we've got time for this week. Send your questions along to questions@that'sjustwild.com and we'll answer them on the show.
That's Just Wild is an original Fresh Air production. The producers are Eva Higginbotham and Emma Crampton. Your support is really welcome. You can follow us on your favourite podcast app. Leave us a review. It makes all the difference to the whole team. And for ad-free listening, our newsletter, special deep dive episodes and members-only benefits, you can subscribe to us at that'sjustwild.com.